Hi everyone, it's Marisa from bumblebeeapothecary.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make chicken soup that fits with stage 1 of the GAPS introduction diet and all the rest of the stages and full GAPS, and is delicious for anyone even if they're not on GAPS. So I have a number of GAPS diet videos on my channel that I made before I did my training to become a certified GAPS coach. And in one of those videos I don't have the most accurate information in, and that is where I show how to make GAPS intro stage 1 chicken soup. And the problem with that one is that I have celery in there, and celery is actually not allowed on GAPS intro until all the way at the end. And some people even say don't have it until full GAPS. I think it's okay to start adding it cooked in stage 5 and raw in stage 6 though. That's what I usually follow. And so anyway, I wanted to redo that video, do a good accurate job with it now that I've learned what I learned in my GAPS coach training. So I'm going to show you how to make chicken soup. This is also making chicken meat stock at the same time. And remember, when we make meat stock, we're making a meal. So we have our chicken meat stock in there, we have the meat from the chicken, we have our vegetables, and so I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I like to make chicken soup for GAPS intro. Let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is adding my chicken and some water to the pot. So I have here a chicken. This, believe it or not, was supposed to be thawing in our outside refrigerator for the past several days, but we've been having very cold, snowy weather here, and that outdoor refrigerator does not insulate from freezing, so it's still pretty frozen. But the good news is, if you forget to defrost your meat, this will still work. So this is actually also a chicken that we raised. We like to raise some on pasture every summer. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into my stainless steel pot. And then the next thing that I'm going to add is going to be some chicken feet and heads. So we save these when we process our chickens that we raise. I love adding these whenever I make chicken soup or chicken meat stock because the feet and heads add a lot of great properties to the meat stock. Those feet add so much collagen. It makes for a really gelatin-rich meat stock with lots of benefits for leaky gut, as well as skin health and hair health and nails and all those kinds of things, and veins. And basically collagen is like one of our body's basic building blocks for pretty much everything. So if you're having a lot of it in your diet, that can only be good. So I like to add a nice amount of those feet and heads in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and start adding water to this. I'm adding filtered water from my Berkey water filter. So I'm going to get the chicken feet and heads on the stove with water and start bringing that to a boil as I'm cutting my vegetables. So it's going to take a while for it to actually boil since this is a big pot and we're starting with some things frozen partially, but that's why I'm going to go ahead and get that started right away. So turn that on high so it can start coming to a boil, and I'm still going to need more water. And while those things are going, I'm going to start cutting up my vegetables. I found that one of the best ways to get really tasty meat stock is to use plenty of onions. So for this big of a pot, I will use at least 2 onions. That really makes a difference for the flavor. And for meat stock and this type of soup, I tend to cut things a little bigger, so about like that. And I'm just going to add everything to the pot as I cut it up. And then I like to add carrots. I'll usually add 6 to 9 carrots. And then the celery. So remember I talked about if you're making this for anything earlier than GAPS intro stage 5, you're not going to be eating the celery. So I'm going to do that just like you would. So I'm going to cut it into this size of pieces, so no smaller than that, and then strain it out. So too fibrous. There was some dirt on there that I needed to wash out, so I'm gonna add those. And then I have some garlic cloves here that I'm gonna wait all the way to the end. I'm gonna press those into the pot after it's done cooking and I've turned the heat off. So I'll just save that for then. And I ran out of water in my Berkey filter. It wasn't very full, so I filled the top of it again, so I'm waiting for a bit more to filter through, and then I'll add more water to this pot to pretty much cover everything. It won't cover everything completely right now since a lot of stuff is still a bit frozen, but as things start cooking and soften, it'll end up being to like an inch below the top of the pot. That's how much water I'm gonna use. Let's talk about water and meat stock for a second. So one of the ways to make sure that you get a nice jelly meat stock that gels nice and thick in the refrigerator is to make sure that you're not using too much water. So a good rule of thumb is 1 quart of water for every 1 pound of meaty bones that you're cooking. So I like to follow that, and more concentrated is fine too. It just means that your meat stock will be more concentrated and you'll need to drink less of it to get the same benefits. And I know that this is going to turn out, it always does turn out it gels very thickly in the refrigerator because I'm using all those feet and heads that really add a lot of collagen to it. Next things that I'm going to add, while I'm waiting for my water to finish filtering the rest of the way, I'm going to add a couple more things, and one of these is going to be peppercorns. So on these early GAPS intro stages, like stage 1, which is what we were making the soup for, you want to use peppercorns and not ground pepper. I like to use these little tea strainers when I add peppercorns, because you can just throw them in there loose if you don't have something like this, but it's kind of a pain to find them all and drain them out or like avoid them when you're eating or whatever. So I like to use these little tea strainers and just add the peppercorns that way. And then when you're done cooking later, you just pull the tea strainer out and there are your peppercorns. And then later on, once you're in stage 4, you can start adding ground pepper. Stick that in there, so that's going to be in the water. And then the next thing that I'm going to add is some high quality mineral salt. So for the GAPS diet, it's really important to be having a good salt full of minerals. My favorites are either Celtic sea salt or Baja Gold. The more that you cook, the more you'll get a good feeling for how much salt you want to add. So I'll show you how much salt I add for this, like a big whole chicken like this. So one of the keys for having really tasty meat stock is having enough salt, but at the same time, you can always add more, but you can't take it out. So you do want to, you know, pay attention to that. For this much, I probably have like 3 tablespoons in there. This is a big pot. I think it's a 12-quart stock pot. And I have a bit more water filtered now, so I'm going to add that. Alright, that's a good amount of water. I usually don't add any more than that. Settle everything down in there. And like I said, as things thaw more, it's going to fit down in there nicer, and then it will be submerged. So what I'm going to be doing is, now that everything's in there, I'm going to be bringing this up to a boil. I'm going to add the lid to speed that process up. That leg is kind of keeping the lid from sitting on there very nicely, but that'll change as it gets cooking. Once it's come up to a boil, I'm going to use my skimmer and I'm going to skim any scum that rises to the top. We raise these chickens so they're very healthy, and the cleaner the chickens are, healthier, the less scum will usually come up, and the lower quality meat will create more scum. So I'll bring it to a boil, skim the scum, and then I'm going to reduce it down to a simmer, and then let's talk about cook time. So for chicken or poultry, any kind of poultry meat stock, it can be 1.5 hours to 3 hours is your time frame for cooking. Other cuts of meat like beef and lamb and elk and bison and venison and things like that will be 4 to 6 hours, but for poultry it's 1.5 to 3 hours, and that's still a bit of a range. So let's talk about how you figure that out. If you have just a grocery store chicken, those tend to cook quicker, so that would be about 1.5 hours, although 3 wouldn't hurt. And then if you have a free range chicken that was raised on pasture like this one, you want to go for 3 hours, just because they're a lot more robust, they're healthier, they have stronger tendons and ligaments and everything, and they just take longer to cook. So I'm going to plan on a 3-hour cook time. Once it's come to a boil and I've skimmed the scum and reduced it to a simmer, then I will start that timer for the 3 hours. Okay, we are now boiling away, so I'm going to go ahead and look for any scum that there is to skim off. Like I said, in these very healthy chickens, there will usually not be much at all, and I don't see much here. I'll go ahead and skim that off. And I see a little fat caught in the skimmer, so I'm going to carefully pour that back in because I don't want to lose any fat. Yeah, that's about all that there is. Since everything is a lot more heated now, I'm going to kind of see if I can move some stuff around to get it a little bit more submerged. Make sure that my peppercorns are underwater, my vegetables. Making sure everything is as submerged as possible. And I wanted to talk about celery again for just a second. You might be wondering, well, if celery is like you can't eat it, why include it at all at these early stages? And I like to include it because it really does make the flavor of the meat stock so good. So I do like to go ahead and include it for flavor, even though you're straining it out. So after that, we're just gonna put the lid on, and then I have the heat down at a simmer, and then now is gonna be the start of my cook time. So 3 hours from now, and then it should be done and ready to enjoy. All right, so it's been simmering for 3 hours now. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off. I'm going to peel my garlic cloves, and then I have my garlic press that I'm going to use to press these cloves right into the pot. Adds really great flavor, and garlic has so many great benefits. And I go ahead and empty the pieces out as well that were inside the garlic press. I just put it all in there after it's been crushed. And then at this point we can go ahead and take out peppercorns that are in our nice handy little tea strainers. I'm having to find the other one. It fell down somewhere, which is not a problem at all. It's just gonna take me a minute to find it.
I wanna see it.
You wanna see it? Okay. I'm just looking for my little peppercorn strainer, and then I'll show it to you, okay? Oh well, I can't find it right now, but I'll just keep an eye out for it.
I wanna see it more.
See? Does that look yummy? Yeah.
A chicken more.
That is a chicken.
Cluck, 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 cluck.
Okay, so then at this point you have a couple different options. What we usually do is the first night we will enjoy chicken soup. So we'll take meat off the bones and enjoy those in a bowl. I'll show dishing that up in a second, along with some carrots and the meat stock. Again, if you're on those early GAPS intro stages, you won't eat the celery, but if you're later than that, you can eat the celery too. So it'll be a nice bowl of chicken soup. You can add some extra fat to it. You can add some liquid probiotic food. You can add egg yolks if you're doing those. You know, all that good stuff. And then what I'll usually do is save the rest of the chicken meat separately, and then I will save the carrots, usually along with the meat, and then I will strain the rest of the meat stock out and save that in some glass jars, and then I'll have that in the refrigerator to bring out and heat up to drink mugs of meat stock or to make other soup with. And so that's what we usually do. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start dishing some up. Alright, and there we have it. Really nice bowl of chicken soup. Another thing that you'll want to do when you're saving the meat off of the chicken or eating the soup is to make sure to enjoy, and Dr. Natasha calls them the nibbly bits. So they're all the little connective tissue, the skin.
A chicken more.
Yeah. If you're somebody who doesn't enjoy eating those nibbly bits, which is totally understandable, a lot of us did not grow up doing that and are kind of turned off by the idea of eating cartilage and stuff. A really handy tip is to pull all that connective tissue and skin and everything, because that's so healing. It has such great benefits for sealing leaky gut and everything. Really important to not leave those out. So you take all those little bits and you put them in a blender along with some of the meat stock and blend them up, and then pour it back into the meat stock. You won't even know it's there. So that's a really important tip. But hope that you enjoyed seeing how to make chicken soup and chicken meat stock the proper way for GAPS intro stage 1 and the rest of intro and full GAPS, and it's delicious for anybody who's not even on the GAPS diet. Check out that description box for links to the printable recipe card and the full written recipe. Also check it out for links to free ebooks and other goodies and where I like to buy a lot of my grocery items. If you did like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with anybody else who you think would like it. Good job! If you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I get out 2 new videos every week on nourishing recipes and natural living. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.